Happy fall, dear readers, and welcome to the next issue. I'm your host, The Power Trip, and I thought I would start off our Halloween celebration for the next month a little early with a little something special. This week I'm dipping into my Wild Storm archive to bring you a tale. Well, it's a sequel of a tale, actually. A continuation of a very old story. One that involves Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and The Evil Dead. Today, I cover Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash. Now, before I get started, I am going to make the comment that I understand the subject material I'm going to be covering today is a good bit adult, so I don't recommend children of a young age reading this book, and I am in no means going to be showing any images of any graphic, gore details on here, so there is no need to worry about this week's episode. With that said, let's get ready to rumble. As a child of the 80s, I grew up, very much enjoying several horror movies, namely the top three that we're going over today. Nightmare on Elm Street was probably my least favorite of the three. I did like Freddy Krueger to a degree, but I personally have never been much of a gore fan. Friday the 13th was definitely more my cup of tea. Still, of course, had plenty of blood and guts to go around, but there was just something about the stalking silent killer that I found more terrifying, got my adrenaline going more than just watching someone get creative in somebody's dreams and just hack and slash everywhere. Couple that with The Evil Dead being one of my, cult favorites for years, and this comic book series just brought together some of my wildest dreams come true. The writers of the story actually take a lot of elements from the last few movies and incorporate it. From I believe it's the ninth Friday the 13th movie, where for a brief second you actually get to see Ash's Necronomicon in Jason's basement, to the fact that when the book starts, it is actually a direct sequel from Jason vs. Freddy in the sense that the main characters, Laurie and Will, actually make an appearance. Being a continuation, you actually get to see what happened with Freddy after he was taken out at the end of Jason vs. Freddy. Spoiler alert there, though the movie has been out for ages, so I apologize if there is anybody that hasn't seen the movie after all these years. But, fear not, Freddy, of course, is not dead. He is, actually in a fate much worse than death, trapped within Jason's head. To set the stage here, Freddy, accessing Jason's memories, is able to come across the fact that the Necronomicon is in Jason's old family home, and proceeds to send Jason after it, hoping that the Book of the Dead will get him out of his current predicament. Flip through a little bit, and you end up finding that Ash gets transferred from his current S-Mart to a Crystal Lake branch that has just opened to help train some of the employees there. A few gruesome deaths later, and Ash finds himself tracking down Jason to Crystal Lake and stumbling upon the Necronomicon, just in time for Jason to find him. Things go from bad to worse as Jason eventually manages to get the Necronomicon away from Ash. And before Ash gets a chance to mount a regroup and get it back, Freddy has managed to access the Necronomicon through Jason's mind and free himself. Over the course of the 6-issue miniseries, anything that you would imagine could happen on paper and wish would happen in a movie does, including Freddy basically becoming a nightmarish god through the Necronomicon. Now, while the book is, to an extent as you would imagine for characters such as these, it's actually very well written. This is, of course, not some, deep thought book that you're going to find. It's definitely no Killing Joke or, Secret Wars or anything in-depth, huge story-wise. The characters, as well as the story, equal the cheese that you would have seen in the old movies. But for any fan of those movies, you are going to enjoy this book immensely. The art is very complimentary to everything you need that you're reading with, and the writers have done a very good job on their research. Just watching the witty retort between Ash and Freddy alone had me laughing out loud the entire time. If you're a fan of any one of these franchises, and especially if you're a fan of all three, do yourself a favor and pick the story up as soon as you can. You're not going to regret it. And if it does happen to leave you wanting more, like many of those old movies did, to be honest, there's even a sequel to this, Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, Nightmare Warriors. Definitely check that one out as well. Now, I know that's going to be a short issue for this week, consider it a mini issue this week, but coming up over the course of the next month, I've got a great Halloween spectacular for you. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next week for the next issue right here on the Culture Cache as we bring you our first ever versus battle, Marvel Zombies versus Blackest Night. I'll see you then.